How's everybody? Welcome to Gaming is Still Life, and this is your host Rich, and this is a little bit of the state of VR right now. How are we doing? Because when Vive and Oculus originally released at their price points, I think the HTC Vive was at $799 or $699, I believe, and the Oculus was right up there at $599. And let's see, it's been about a good year and some change since that came out. And how are we doing today? I don't know. I feel that the only thing that we have right now to keep us afloat in the development and the creation of more and exciting games is going to have to be PlayStation, which I hate the thought of. But right now it's January 29th, tomorrow will be January 31st, and still no Resident Evil VR on PC. Why is that? It should have been out by now. There should have been yelling at the top of the mountain, at the top of the hills, PlayStation or Resident Evil for PC available. Date. It's not. I even read somewhere that Vive wanted to sell off that division of their business. Oculus, I mean, they have a lot of money to be able to support their goal of 1 billion VR users, which is a lofty goal. And I think they have maybe, and it's my belief, I think maybe they have the best outline for their plan, because they're not rushing to release a new screen for their system. They're just sticking with their system and they're sticking with their games. I'm worried because I haven't really heard of any new big releases that they're planning, but hopefully things will change. With the lowering, just recently Windows came out in, I think it was November, with their Windows mixed reality platforms, and as quickly as December they had a fire sale and it went down to $199 for a lot of the headsets. That was around December 13th, I think it was, and I was like, okay, well, they just want to get some more of the holiday money. But then recently Amazon released a lot of their headsets for really low. That kind of got me a little bit worried. Are they giving up on development? Why doesn't Microsoft, they have a games division. Why don't they support it? They have all these great games, and you've seen these other racing games where they just convert it they convert very well, I think they do, to a VR setting. And they have these franchises that they could easily convert and give us some VR content, but they haven't. I do truly feel that the next Halo will have either a standalone VR component or something VR related. The best thing that could ever have, and this is my personal opinion, the best thing that could ever happen is that if Microsoft allows some kind of implementation with the Windows headsets to work with their Xbox One platform. Because if that happens, there's going to be a lot more competition between PlayStation and Xbox to stimulate that market, and that's what we need. I feel like as far as a PC users, we're getting the scraps. PlayStation is locking down and securing a lot of that development for however long their exclusivity lasts for, and in a way I think that hurts VR. Another thing I don't like is a lot of these platforms like Oculus is a closed platform. Even though with Revive you can play a lot of their games on there, but the Windows mixed reality system is like the last man out. It's always I was just looking at the newest Revive, and it shows I think it's 1.1 or 1.211 or something like that, where they did it, but they have a note on there saying that if you're trying to use this with a Windows mixed reality headset, it's not meant for that. I did try Revive, and it did help a little bit with some of the problems I was having from other suns, where when I was looking around, it was kind of glitching on me. It did fix it, but it didn't fix it completely. See, the thing that I get confused, and I think a lot of other people get confused, is that you have your settings in Steam VR. Okay, for example, the super sampling is set at 1.0. But then again, a lot of games in the game have their own settings. And then if you're playing, for example, an Oculus game with Revive, it has its own settings there. So does one setting trump the other settings? Or if anybody knows, please help me on that, because I don't really know. I was talking to my buddy Gunther the other day, and he was telling me that I made a mistake selling off my PlayStation. That I should have more PlayStation VR games. That is where the market is heading, and that's where all the people at. But that's not what I like. I did have a PlayStation for many years. I was always a console guy, and I did get the PlayStation VR, but I hated the controls. I hated it. I liked it the way it was light and everything, but I did not like the one camera, and I did not like the resolution in it. The resolution was just atrocious, and I really thought that was going to go nowhere. When these were announced, right away I knew I wanted the Samsung version of it, just because I do feel that Samsung makes the best screens on the market, and I don't know, I took a chance, and I'm happy with that chance. I just wish that there was more of a united, right now they need to have a united front. They're not making the money off the headsets, they're making the money off the games. But right now we're at a point where their foundation is very fragile, and people are confused. I get so many emails about which headset to buy, and it's confusing out there because of the cross compatibility. I do like what I'm seeing now. For example, I saw in Orbis VR where they're making it cross-platform, where if I do play it on Steam VR, I can play it with a buddy of mine that is, for example, on Oculus Rift, or vice versa. And I think that is going to be the most important thing from this day forward, in order to be able to expand that market. Now, these headsets, as far as Windows mixed reality, I think they consciously built them, and they set the price where they knew it wasn't going to cost that much. Those controllers don't cost, I think the headset and with the controllers and everything, I think it doesn't cost Microsoft or whoever builds them more than maybe $100 worth of materials. I think if you parted everything out, and the price is probably even lower than that. So they're making some kind of money on it, because where does Microsoft make this money? They license out to these creators that make the headsets, but they're not making a cut off of every game, because they're making it work with Steam VR. Now, they do have a Microsoft store, but it's sadly lacking. What are you doing, Microsoft? I mean, you have a muscle behind you. Develop some VR games for this system. I mean, you have the capacity to lead the way. It feels almost like the companies are starting to backpedal. Like okay, they're cutting their losses, and that really has me scared, because ever since I started playing VR games, and I think a lot of you out there will agree with me, and it's a whole different world. You are in the game. Everything is like your new eyes to the world. Everything is the graphics don't have to be perfect, but you just feel it. You feel like you're in the game. That sense of presence, that you can look around, and it is just something that I haven't experienced since, I think, when I first laid my eyes on the PlayStation 1, where I first started playing 3D games, and I was like, wow, this is a paradigm shift for me. After I started playing 3D games, I did not want to go back to flat, 2D games, even though like 2D games had a lot of great stuff still, and I still do play to this day, but it was something that changed for me. And now that I've gotten a taste of VR, I want it to succeed so much that I spend my time and energy dedicating a channel to VR, because it's something I'm passionate about. So that's one of the things that has got me troubled, is a company like Capcom, a company that could easily make money. The game is already developed. All they have to do is switch it over so it works with Steam VR, or however they want to do it, and just do it. Why is there no Resident Evil 7 for PC available for VR? What is going on right there? And I don't get that. I don't get that. And some of these games, like some of these companies, like the biggest game coming out this year, Fallout 4, it's like they didn't even test it. They didn't even like give it to some dude and say, hey, run this, see how it runs. Because if they would have done that, they would have seen some of the missteps that they did. That game was like, if they just flicked a couple switches and was like, here, out the door. They barely had to do anything for it. And that is very saddening, because Bethesda is one of my favorite companies out there. And it's a shame. And I think in order for VR to succeed, I think Microsoft needs to implement it with their Xbox One. And they can easily do it. And they need to start releasing some VR games themselves. Now, I really do think that Halo is going to come out for VR. I'm calling it. It's definitely going to come out. I think they will show something this E3, and we don't have that killer app yet. We have a lot of great games, but we don't have that killer app. After Halo came out, and there was a very noticeable drought, to the point where, like, I look at all of these experiences coming out and they're very lacking. I want some story. I played Zing the other day and it was going great. It really was. But how do you make a game to where you're platforming and you have to jump from one stone to another, okay? And I've played a lot of video games in my life. I'm not a newbie, okay? And you're falling through the stones. And I was having such a good time. I mean, it was a very laid back, mellow, chill game. But how does something like that get out the door? What are you doing, developers? I mean, unless I missed something. And I went back and I tried it again. And that wasn't the only part. On some of those things that you have to like turn in the game over the water on Zing, those two, when you walk on it, like on certain parts, you just fall right through the floor. What is up with that? I've been playing Subnautica. That's a new game that I just got today. Awesome game so far, but it is running like trash. I can tell why. The wave effects and the plant life and everything on there. It was a game designed for 2D. Now you're projecting it on two different screens inside my VR headset. Of course the frame rates are gonna like dip down. I mean, I was running at like 20, 30, 40 frames. Okay, I had to lower all my settings just to get it to go up to 60, 70, and I don't have major stuttering. That's another thing that I've noticed a lot is when you have more pixels, you need a much beefier rig, and I don't have a slack rig. I have a decent rig, and I feel bad for the Pimax 8K and the 4K and all those headsets coming out, because they're gonna need, I don't know, a massive amounts of processing power. And that's the thing, that people don't have the money to buy the rigs to get the VR headsets. That's one thing that excited me when this was coming out, is that more people with less of a computer can run these. But you know, that's just like anything else. You know, back in the 70s when Apple, you know, was first releasing the desktop computer, it was something that was very expensive, and very few people could afford it. Very few people had it. But in the span of a few years, you know, the prices started coming down. I think Microsoft was smart enough to develop a headset that the production costs are really low. And it doesn't cost anything for Acer or for these other companies to build it, because Microsoft already had the technology already developed from their HoloLens project, that they allow these other companies to build them, because they know that they don't make any money off the headsets. But what are you doing, Microsoft? Make some VR games. Do something. Announce something. We need that push. And Oculus, in my theory, was smart. They're not releasing a headset. They said they're not releasing any headset in 2018. And they don't have to, because their 1080p display that they have already is enough. It really is. I mean, might have to wear my glasses with it, but the difference is very little when you're going from 1080 to 1600. Now, the difference is hugely apparent when your computer starts to chug, but you just, on my Oculus, I can just turn my settings up and it still looks very good. Now, I think that HTC is making a mistake. It's not enough just to go up a little bit in resolution. I think when Oculus does make their move, and they make it backward and forward compatible, okay, with their current Oculus, so they don't, you know, they don't want to separate and split, you know, into new Oculus and old Oculus. But I do think that eventually they're going to be the ones to add eye tracking. Eye tracking is going to be the most important development in VR that is going to come up. That is more important than the gloves, more important than anything. Because if the eye can focus on something like it does naturally, and kind of, I think they call it fluorescent rendering, where you can focus on one thing and then have to render less on anything else. And if they can do that fast enough, that is going to allow for a much easier experience in VR. And we can't, all these suits and all these things, it has to be fast and simple. Okay, I'm talking about plug and play, put it on, and something very simple. I think that's why they've sold a lot more mobile VR. But the problem with the mobile VR is that, yes, it's a cheaper solution, a lot more people have it, but The problem with mobile VR is that I think that people will look at that and think that's what true VR is, and that's not what it is. So hopefully, I think Oculus is on the right path. When they release that $200 headset, Oculus Go, that is going to be the entry point. Kind of like how Nintendo was always the entry point for getting them when they're young, and then PlayStation where they graduated and got older and they wanted to play more sophisticated games. I think that's what the Oculus Go is going to be. Because if we don't start getting more women playing and getting interested in VR, and it doesn't have to be games, it could be all kinds of different things. If we don't get more women interested in it and get that numbers up, then VR is not going to succeed. It's going to be too expensive, and it just won't. So there's a lot of hurdles that have to be done. Can we do it? Yes. But there's some worrying trends going on, and hopefully these developers can see that, and hopefully PlayStation or Sony is not so antagonistic like they like to do and just grab everybody and not let anybody get anything. Because there's no excuse why we don't have Resident Evil 7 VR for PC right now. There is none. And this is an open letter for Capcom. Get your act together and get it act together straight and get it now. Because I wanted that game this year and I don't know where it's at. But thank you very much. I wanted to do this little video. It's a couch, easy going, laid back, the state of VR, what it is currently, January 29th, 2018. It's 2018, and I think the sky's the limit. It's something that I love, and I think that you love too. So join me. If you're not already subscribe, because I'm going to be making more and more videos. I am going to be trying to get the latest technology, anything that I feel that will pave the way for VR to continue on its trajectory up, and I will support it. I try to support all the developers that I can, and I do it out of my own pocket. Okay, thank you very much. Please hit that like button if you haven't already. If you're not a subscriber already, subscribe. More good content. And remember, follow your dreams. Because if you work hard, they will come true. You just have to work hard at it. It's not an easy. Nobody gives you anything in life. Okay? But you have to go for it. Have that dream. Really. And the sky's the limit. Alright? Thank you very much. From the bottom of my heart. Alright? And you guys have a good night. Thank you.